This is the Mr. Irrelevant podcast. I chose a Mr. Irrelevant name not because I was even good enough to be drafted last overall in the NFL draft, but just because I was a simple average Joe just talking about my love for sports and my learning as much about sports as I possibly can. From football to F1 to really any sport he feels like talking about, Mr. Irrelevant podcast starts now. And welcome back to that show. Of course, I am your host, Connor Bork. A few housekeeping things before we get in today's actual topics. Go ahead and make sure you're following both myself and the show on Twitter. My Twitter handle is going to be @ConnorAssassin5. If you're watching this on YouTube, then that's the @ that is underneath my picture. And the show's Twitter @ is going to be @Mr. Irrelevant P. That is @Mr. Irrelevant, the letter P. And links to both of those are in the description of both the YouTube video as well as the show notes, wherever you're listening to this, wherever you get your podcast. Moving right along, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, the Mr. Irrelevant podcast. Every single episode is posted there, just like on all the other platforms. Plan to do some more stuff over there, hopefully in the near future, but as of right now, that is just re-uploads, maybe adding some clips and stuff like that coming soon. Moving on, we just a little update on where this is all located. So the audio-only version of this, as well as, they're all audio-only, but the specific podcast version of this quote-unquote podcast are going to be available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Stitcher, as well as, I think, Pandora. So really anywhere, most of the places that you'll be able to find podcasts, you will be able to find this show. We are also going to be launching a TikTok here very shortly. The TikTok is @the Mr. Irrelevant Pod. That is @the Mr. Irrelevant Pod. Make sure you're following us there, and we'll be posting stuff like, clips of the shows, reactions, so on and so forth. So if you're just wanted to make sure that you guys, if you guys want to stay up to date completely with the show, make sure you're following us all there. Now getting into today's topics, we do have some news that I want to cover today at the beginning of this episode. That's going to be the Brett Favre news. Now, this is all alleged. None of this has been confirmed in the court of law, I should say, but some news stories have been breaking. Some text messages have been leaked, and allegedly he's been caught up in a welfare scam where his nonprofit has misused over $77 million of donations. $5 million of that was the state state welfare that was used to build Southern Mississippi's new volleyball facility, which is where Favre's daughter plays. The former governor, Phil Bryant, and Favre were both in on it, and those text messages say so as well. Kind of a dirty situation to be involved in. Especially when you're stealing from the people that need it the most, especially in the state of Mississippi, which is not known for being that wealthy of a state in the first place. No offense to any of my homies in Mississippi. As a matter of fact, shout out to you guys. Hope Jackson, Mississippi is recovering from that water situation as well. But this whole situation is just kind of a sticky one. It's really unfortunate. But I hope that justice is served here, and I hope that everybody can continue to get the money that they need, the money really that they deserve at the end of the day. Moving right along, on a less serious note, getting that out the way, college football. Not much of a college. I don't usually do college football previews unless it's a big game, but of course with the news that College Game Day is going to App State, I think that's a pretty big deal. You might be asking yourself, I'm myself Texas Tech fan, University of Louisiana fan. Those are my two colleges. Why would I be excited that College Game Day is going to a rival, at least, of the University of Louisiana? Well, it's because we're finally getting some Sun Belt recognition for College Game Day going to Boone, which I think is going to be fantastic. If you're not, well-versed in Sun Belt teams and so on and so forth, App State's probably in the upper echelon, A, S tier. Troy's probably down there at your D and F tier. No offense to Troy players, no offense to anybody that might go to Troy, but that's just been the case in recent years, really, for as long as I can remember. So if you're a betting man, maybe you take to look App State. You look to take App State money line. Not gambling advice, but maybe something you look into. If the odds aren't that great, then maybe, I don't know, figure it out. You guys are probably better sports gamblers than I am, considering the fact that I reside in Texas and it is somehow illegal here. So that's all I really have for college football. I just wanted to make a note of how cool I thought it was that they're going to be going to a Sunbelt school going up to Boone, North Carolina. I've been there, like I said, toured the campus. It is absolutely gorgeous up there. Bit of a trek in. It's about an hour away from the nearest airport, but it's gorgeous and well worth it. If you guys are ever looking for a great spot to do, maybe some fall or some early spring vacationing, definitely take a look at Boone, North Carolina. You got a lake up there that's got some pretty decent fishing if you're into that. It's just all gorgeous. They also have the Biltmore pretty close by for those history fans out there. I myself being a pretty big history nerd, if you're interested in United States history, so on and so forth, or you want to see a house that looks like it should be in Europe. It's one of those giant estates that was modeled after European estates. So definitely go check it out. Moving now to the NFL, which of course is our primary subject that we're talking about at the moment, seeing as we are, right into the throes of the NFL season. We have a Thursday night game, which obviously is tonight if you're listening to this as it comes out. If you're listening to this after the game's already finished, then I do apologize. Maybe skip ahead a little bit. Actually, I can go ahead and tell you, skip ahead till after the break when we get into the Sunday games. But right now, we're going to be going over the Thursday night game. Thursday night, we will see a competition between the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Chiefs Kingdom, to Arrowhead Stadium, to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Few points that I want to make here. Chargers, Keenan Allen is going to be out with a hamstring injury. It's either hamstring or quad. I know it's something in the thigh. But, I mean, anytime that you have like a soft tissue injury like this on a Sunday, and then you have a quick turnaround to short week and you play on Thursday, definitely going to want to take care of that player, especially if it's this early in the season and he's a very pivotal point of that offense. It's very important that he gets that rest, so I'm glad to see that they're doing so. J.C. Jackson, corner for the Chargers, going to be a game time decision from what I'm reading. That could have changed here recently, and obviously if you're listening to this right before the game happens, then you would have had your answer, but everything that I'm seeing says that J.C. Jackson will be a game time decision. Of course, that still leaves them with Mike Williams, Justin Herbert, Khalil Mack, and of course Bosa on the defense, Khalil Mack and Bosa being on the defense. So I do think that they're going to be just fine, but just two players to look out for, two players that do matter a lot to that offense, or that team as a whole. Moving now on to some points about the Chiefs. They do have that, they're playing in Arrowhead, obviously. And last week, they just looked incredible. If you want to see how my full thoughts about last week, make sure that you go take a look at the previous episode, if you haven't already, of course. But, I mean, Mahomes is definitely doing what he said he would be doing in sharing the ball, throwing it to multiple receivers, not throwing it to, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. That's it. He's spreading the ball around, which is awesome to see. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks to be fully ingrained into the NFL. He's catching out the backfield. He's running incredibly. That offensive line's helping out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I could not be more happy for. And a stat that I did not know last week or last episode, but I saw this morning, I think on First Take. The Chiefs ran 66 plays in total on Sunday. 33 of those 66 plays were first downs, meaning that 50% of the plays that they ran, they got a first down on. That is insane production. That is insane efficiency. They're going to be hard to beat, which is why I've selected them to win this Thursday night matchup. And just a reminder to you all, these predictions that I'm making on Thursday are official predictions that I'm keeping track of, and will at the end of the season see how well I did. I'm currently 8-7-1 after last week's predictions. I went a bit bolder this week, I'd like to say. Some of them were a lot safer, but I did do some pretty big bold predictions. Kind of reset, maybe a little bit of overreacting, but we know a lot more about these teams now than we did last week, before the first week, of course. So, but yeah, with that being said, it is already time for me to take a quick break. I want to dive right into the Sunday games and as well as the Monday games. We do have a doubleheader on Monday to look forward to, which is exciting. We've got a lot to talk about in the second half, but it'll be a few seconds for you. Maybe a little bit longer for me, but anyways, I will see you all after the break. And welcome back, of course. I am your host, Connor Bork. This is the Mr. Relevant podcast. Hope you guys are still having a fantastic day and enjoying this episode. We are going to now get into talking about the Sunday slate of games, making my picks, as well as the Monday slate of games. And I do say slate because we do have a doubleheader to look forward to on Monday. Getting right into it, first game is going to be the Jets at the Browns. Jets, not a lot of positives after week one, other than Garrett Wilson. Joe Flacco is just not looking like himself, not looking like he did in the past, not looking like a Super Bowl champion. Need to run the ball more. Got to get Breece Hall involved. I think they need to run the ball, work off of play action, hit Garrett Wilson as much as possible, and I do think that they will have some success in that regard. But the Browns, they actually look decent. As much as I don't want to admit it, they did look decent in Week 1 against Carolina, especially there early. They have a fantastic running game, of course, where they're using Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, flip-flopping them as fullbacks to kind of hide them in this scheme. So if that run game continues to work the way that it has, then I think they'll have some success there as well. Their D-line is still absolutely incredible, so it might be difficult for the Jets to even set up play action, even get that run game going, so we'll have to wait and see on that front. But the Browns do need to get Amari Cooper going a bit more. I mean, they traded for him in the offseason, so that's an asset that I think Jacoby Brissett needs to take full advantage of. But I do have the Browns winning here, probably by a pretty large margin as well. Commanders at Lions. The Commanders looked really good, actually, I think. A lot better than I expected them, especially because I thought that they were going to be like one of the worst teams in the league. Not really seeming to be the case. I mean, they did beat the team that previously had a number 1 overall draft pick, but of course you have to think about, was it the coaching? Was it the morale because of the coaching? Like how much of it was on the players? And they did have a pretty decent offseason as far as bringing in both rookie talent and free agents. But that's enough about the Jaguars. We're talking about the Commanders now. Carson Wentz was playing Carson Wentz football, and in this instance, Carson Wentz football was the good, looked really good. So that is something to take note of. Antonio Gibson out of the backfield looked to be very dangerous. So they definitely need to take advantage of that if they want the win. Defenses. Their defense is good on paper. They are still missing Chase Young, who had that injury, and he is on the PUP list, I do believe. Or not the PUP list, he's on some list. No, it might be the PUP. He's on a list, I know that much. So I'm not even able to dress out, really. But the defense is still good, so if they can come together, I do think they have a good chance in this one. But the Lions, they showed that they had an amazing run game out the backfield. Their defense is fantastic. They have the Raging Cajun Tracy Walker, who had that interesting game last week. Of course, you have the two heroes, or two of the heroes, really three of the heroes. There's one on the offensive side of the ball as well, but the two defensive heroes from Hard Knocks being Rodrigo and Aiden Hutchinson, both of which look to be absolute bona fide studs. And then on the offense, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown coming into his own. My sleeper pick for the season, a guy that I've been really high on ever since he was drafted, and I'm just really happy to see him being successful, and especially in the NFL at such a high level. He's one of the reasons why I won my fantasy matchup last week. I have a bye week this week, but still looking forward to seeing what he can do. Also, you still have TJ Hawkinson, one of the better tight ends in the league. Just absolute big dude, catch the ball, fantastic. They also have a pretty decent O-line. A lot of people forget about how much they've bolstered that O-line. I do have the Lions finally coming out and getting a win simply because I think they're the more talented team. I think the coaching staff, not to say that Ron Rivera is a bad coach, I absolutely love him, but I think the coaching staff as a whole, and maybe this is just Hard Knocks bias, probably a little bit more talented on the Lions. They don't have the front office drama. They don't have administration drama. It's just football, grit, football for the Lions, and I do think that those little things are going to bring them a win this week. Then you have the Buccaneers going down to New Orleans, to the beautiful Crescent City, taking on the New Orleans Saints. Now I am a Saints fan, and I have mentioned that multiple times, I believe. There's just a few stats, just a few stats that I want to go over real quick about this game. The Saints are currently 7-0 in the last 7 times that they've played the Buccaneers, and the Saints are 4-0 against Brady. Now I do know that trends are they're meant to be broken. They will be broken eventually, but I feel insanely good about this game. The Saints have Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave. Best wide receiver group in the league, bar none. That's a hot take that you can take that take, print it, do whatever you want. That is my take, and I think it is a very, very accurate. Jameis looked pretty good, like really good last week, especially in that fourth quarter. And I've harped on that fourth quarter from last game a lot. That if this Saints team plays like they did in the fourth quarter and they are able to get the run game going, then I think that they're going to be unstoppable and they could make to the Super Bowl. Saints fan me would be happy, but guy who predicted the Bucs to go to the Super Bowl would not be happy. But yeah, just I mean that's just what it is. I mean, I've pretty much given you the rundown for the Saints as a whole. I mean, their defense needs to get going early, need to get control of this game, need to put Brady into some difficult situations. They need to get the run game going, and they need to just clock manage and control this game like they do every season for the past 2 seasons that Brady's been there, like they've done the last 7 times. I do have a bit of a conspiracy theory as to why we've been so good against the Bucs. More why we've been so good against the Bucs when Brady's been there. And I think it does have to do with Jameis. He played against that offense every single day in practice, so he knows it pretty well. That doesn't account for the 3 games before that. I think the 3 games before that really just was we had a better team. But ever since Brady's gone there, I think it just is because Jameis's knowledge of that defense. Obviously the offense probably definitely changed and is more tailored around Tom Brady, but he probably still knows a few calls that he's been able to pass on to the Saints defense to help him out there. Now the Bucs, not to say that the Bucs are just a washover team. I mean, we saw what they did last week in week 1. They have Brady. Godwin is still out, but they have Mike Evans and Julio Jones. They have a great defense and safety, but they do need some help at cornerback and defensive back as a whole, minus the safeties, obviously. But I do think that they have a really good team. I do have the Saints coming out with a win. Call it biased, call it blind, blind confidence or whatever you want to call it. But I do have the Saints marked down as a win as my official pick for this week. Moving right along to another NFC South team, not both of them, just the Panthers, but the Panthers are going to travel up to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the New York Football Giants. Panthers, Bakers did get hot at the end of the game there. He seemed to get come into his own, seemed to finally understand some stuff. Some stuff was clicking. Needs to get a bit more chemistry with his receivers, but other than that, I think that he's going to work out and finally be that starting quarterback that they've been looking for. They do need to, however, run the ball better. I think Christian McCaffrey maybe had like 22, maybe 30 yards in total running the ball. Now, passing was a different story. He did have some more receptions, but I do think they needed to work on that run game. They're fantastic at skill positions. Of course, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. They do have the weapons. Chuba Hubbard as well. The running back position. They have a good defense. I mean, they have Brian Burns and Jeremy Chin. People forget about that. So this roster is very good, and I think it is one of those rosters that just needed a good quarterback. They have the quarterback now. Now can Matt Rule put it all together? I don't remember their GM's name off the top of my head, but can Carolina's GM handed Matt Rule this team? Okay. We have a rich owner. We went out. We got a quarterback. He won the starting battle against Sam Darnold. This is our guy, at least for this season. I think he can be there long term, but regardless. Now Matt Rule needs to put it all together, and I think that if he can't put it all together, then it might be time to let him go. That's just what I think, but I think he's had more than enough time to figure out what this team needs to be. Love Matt Rule, but it's coming to the leash is coming to an end, I guess you can say. Moving on to the Giants. Saquon Barkley is 100% back. Daniel Jones has a really good connection with his receivers, at least from what I saw. And they have a decent defense. Regardless of that fact, I do have the Panthers winning just because I think the Panthers are the more talented team. And at that point, it would be coaching, which, if I'm saying that, maybe Brian Daboll can make up for the lack of talent that he has. Not saying that he lacks talent, but he's lacking more talent than the Panthers are. That's the best way to put that. So I do have the Panthers winning that game. That's my official pick. Moving on to the AFC, or to an AFC matchup, I guess I could say. Patriots at Steelers. Okay, Patriots, I don't know what's happening. How long can we have blind confidence in Bill Belichick? I mean, I guess he has the longest leash at quarterback and GM of anyone else in the National Football League, and he's definitely earned that. But I don't know how long we can just have this confidence in him to to pull a rabbit out of the hat, to have this magic trick. I mean, we knew this offense was going to struggle, and we saw it last week. He had a couple things. Mac had back spasms, so on and so forth, but they have no weapons. They have no offensive weapons outside of Mac Jones. And their defense is good, but your defense can only take you so far. I know that they're going to come into a lot of money next season, and maybe they use this season as another rebuilding one where they made it to the playoff last year. Maybe they struggle a little bit again, and then they go for another run, and Bill Belichick comes back, and he pisses on all of us and saying, "Ha, told you so. I'm the best fucking guy to do it." But there's not much positives to look at this team other than their defense, and that's about it. Steelers, of course, we got some question marks on their defense as well. Can their defense perform as well as it did last week without TJ Watt? TJ Watt, of course, was placed on IR this morning, meaning that he's going to be out for at least 6 weeks. Can that defense still perform without him? Only time will tell. We'll have to find out on Sunday. Can Mitchell Trubisky play well again? Can he play a little bit better because he knows that defense can hold him into this game as well as they did last week? But the number one thing, they need to run the ball. And I said this last week multiple times. I think Matt Canada's offense just can't run the ball, but they need to figure it out because they have one of the best young backs in the league, and it's kind of just wasting away back there. It's fine to use him as a slot receiver. It's fine to throw it to him out of the backfield. But that being said, they do need to run the ball. They need to figure out in those 3-1, 4-1, 3-2, gold line, whatever it is, how they can get those extra yards, and they need to have successful run plays. They need to set up that play action pass. They need to set up the bootlegs, and it's something that in the NFL, running backs are becoming less important, but you still need a running back. It's better to have a good running back than to not. It's better to have a good couple of running backs than to not, especially because play action is such a big deal. And if you can have a big bruising back like Derrick Henry with the smaller linebackers, with linebackers getting smaller and faster in this league, you can have some very well success. But I do have the Steelers winning this week against the Patriots simply because the Patriots are such a large question mark, and I could not find very many positives about their week one or about the team overall so far. So I do have the Steelers winning that one. Moving now to the Colts versus the Jaguars. Colts, Matt Ryan looked good. Jonathan Taylor looked amazing. They do have an amazing O-line. They do have a really good defense. Jaguars, still a lot of question marks. Trevor Lawrence, the question mark's not about his talent, but that chemistry with his wide receivers. Christian Kirk reset the wide receiver market in the offseason, so can he perform? They do have a good defense. I mean, they spent draft picks on defensive players. Of course, Walker going number one overall. I do, however, have the Colts coming out winning this simply because they're a lot older, as they have a lot more older players, a lot more veterans, Matt Ryan, so on and so forth. Jaguars, still a young team. I do think they're going to get some wins this season, and I don't think they'll have the number one overall pick again. But they're going to have some more growing than the Colts do, especially as we get later into the season. So Colts win that one. Moving now to the Dolphins at the Ravens. This is an interesting one. This took me a while to predict. I mean, Dolphins, they have Tua, they have, Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, they have Mike Gesicki, they have a good defense. Ravens, Lamar struggled a little bit out the gate, but he didn't play in preseason, so that was to be expected from those non-preseason quarterbacks. Ravens' running game does still look to be fantastic. J.K. Dobbins might come back this week. I saw that he was not officially marked as out, but questionable, so he might be back. We'll have to wait and see. And their defense is good as well. This is a very interesting matchup, and I think this matchup is going to answer a lot of questions for both of these teams. I do have the Dolphins winning just based off of their performance last week. I mean, both these teams played, teams that might have very high draft picks at the end of the season, and they did very well against them. But we'll have to wait and see what that is. I guess I give the Dolphins a bit more respect simply because they did play the Patriots, albeit a shell of the former glory that was the Patriots. And the Ravens played the Jets. I mean, yeah. But Dolphins winning is my pick. Falcons at Rams. Another interesting one. Because what are the Falcons and what are the Rams? Falcons are Marcus Mariota, Kyle Pitts, and Cordell Patterson are their three, main things. But outside of that, and that cornerback whose name is escaping me, but they have a corner. Terrell. other than that, they're kind of lacking talent, and the Rams have talent, but not as much as they did last year. And of course, that Week 1 performance was weak at best. Stafford's elbow is still questionable. Allen Robinson needs to get targets, needs to do a lot with those targets, but they do still have one of the best D lines in football. And there's a lot of questions around number 5, Jalen Ramsey, because he got cooked on last Thursday. I do still have the Rams coming out and winning just because they have the talent, and I think that this is going to be a situation where the Jimmies and Joes outweigh the X's and O's. I mean, Sean McVay is still a fantastic quarterback. Coach. Do not get that twisted. But I just simply think that their talent's going to come out and beat them. It might not be a pretty game, or maybe they fix all their issues and I'm talking out my ass and they're going to come out, smack them 60-0, and then the Rams are back. Who knows? But I do have the Rams winning this one. Seattle Seahawks at 49ers. This is an interesting one because we don't know what either of these teams are yet either. There's a lot of teams that we know exactly who they're going to be after Week 1. These two teams are not those teams. These are not those guys. Seahawks, of course, had a very strong showing on Monday Night Football. More so in the first quarter or the first half, which does raise some question marks about their ability to adapt later into the game in situational football. But Geno Smith, can he keep up what he did last week, or was that just pure off of motivation? Pete Carroll said that he performed just like he did in practice in the game, so maybe that's a sign of good things to come in the man's 10th year. We'll have to wait and see. Their defense did very well at the goal line and did well overall, I would say. But, of course, with news today, Jamal Adams' injury does seem to be a year-ending one, which is very unfortunate. He's had a very, very injury-ridden career at Seattle, which is very unfortunate. Of course, LSU safety, love him as a player. Peyton Manning loves him as a player, so hope that he comes back soon. And yeah, just a very unfortunate. Week 1 for the 49ers, though, even more question marks because they played in a monsoon. Was Week 1 due to the lack of talent or the weather? Trey Lance still has some question marks. He did not seem to be playing his best football that we've seen him play before. But again, with the weather, who really knows? George Kittle has been still missing practice, which is questionable. So because of that, I do have the Seattle Seahawks winning this game. And of course, Elijah Mitchell was placed on IR, so we'll have to wait and see for that one. Bengals at Cowboys. The Bengals, I think this is gonna be a big week for them. As a matter of fact, this is gonna be a big week for them. Joe Burrow did struggle last week in Week 1, but I think that he's gonna come back. The O-line struggled, but again, this is minus Micah Parsons. I think this defense is going to be fantastic for the Bengals. For the Bengals' confidence, they have Jamar Chase, Boyd, and then T. Higgins, and I think that this is going to be a big game for their offense and a big game for their defense because Cooper Rush. I mean, let's just get into the Cowboys. I mean, can they win with Cooper Rush? That's a big question. They're lacking a lot of wide receiver depth. I mean, they have Michael Gallup still out. They have the XFL guy, and then they have CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's fantastic, but I mean, Dak Prescott in the game, a fantastic quarterback, and they looked like dog water. No offense, Cowboys fans, or maybe some offense because Cowboys fans, but they looked like dog water. That being said, they do need to run. If they're going to do anything, they need to get those two running backs going. They do still have some O-line question marks, and can the defense revolve around Diggs and Parsons? Diggs, who got cooked, I'd like to say, and did not do what we expect him to do with the takeaways. So we'll have to see there. Of course, I have the Bengals winning. I think that was pretty evident in what I was saying earlier. Texans at Broncos. The Texans, of course, Davis Mills is looking like he's going to be their guy. They still have Brandon Cooks. They do have a decent defense with the rookie Stingley out of LSU. Go Tigers. Broncos, Ken Russ and his wide receivers get on the same page. They need to figure out their run game. They need to figure out their O-line in general. And they still, of course, have Chubb and Pat Surtain II on that defense. I do think the Broncos are the more talented the team, and I think with another week in the system, Russ will figure something out. Do have them coming out with the win. My official pick is the Broncos to win, but I would not be surprised if it goes the other way. If it goes the other way, then I think we might need to start questioning the $260 million that he was paid. Not to say they can't come back. Obviously, I'm a Saints fan, so I've seen seasons where we've gone on 0-2 the first 2 weeks and then went to the NFC Championship, only to have the Rams ruin it for us. But that's besides the point. We're not going to talk about that. I'm not going to relive that. Still get PTSD, 1,000-yard stares from that, so regardless. Girlfriend makes fun of me for it all the time because I did break multiple things, including my very expensive designer glasses on that day. Anyways, so yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. Cardinals at Raiders. Cardinals, I mean, look, they just looked bad overall. I'm very much looking forward to their in-season Hard Knocks because I'm interested to see how that they're running behind the scenes and how the locker room is reacting to this level of play. But Nuke, J.J. Watt, Rondale Moore, Andy Isabella, and Zach Ertz are all out. I don't know what you expect Kyler Murray to do in that situation. I don't know what you expect the team to do in that situation. They are lacking so many of their top stars that it's insane. It's unfathomable how they're even going to compete with that. The Raiders, Carr to Adams, Carr to Waller, Carr to Renfro looks to be deadly. Their defensive line is good, but they're lacking on the back end. But even with that, the Raiders, I think, are going to win simply because, Kyler Murray, he's going to have to throw the ball to himself. He can do it. He's fast enough to do it. He's got the arm talent to do it. But he's throwing to insurance salesmen out there right now. There's none of his starters are there. So I think it's going to be a long road until for the Cardinals until they can get those key members of the team back. Moving on now to the Bears and Packers. Bears at Packers. Justin Fields looks fantastic. Darnell Mooney is looking to be money with 2 O's. He looks fantastic. Roquan Smith making plays. David Montgomery making plays. Again, it was a rain game, so we have to kind of put an asterisk by how they performed. But they performed well in the rain, which I think is a big deal. Packers are still having wide receiver issues. Don't know if Alan Lazard's going to be back. And this was an interesting point that Dan Orlovsky made this morning on Get Up. Rodgers took 9 hits, 4 sacks overall. That never happened at all last season. I even think that he said that might not have even happened in his whole career. So is Rodgers' comprehension slowing down? TBD, we'll have to see there, but he's not throwing the ball away as much as he used to. He's taking sacks, he's taking hits. Part of me thinks it's because he's having to wait for his receivers to get open, but we'll have to see about that. And their O-line injuries, David Bakhtiari and Jenkins are both still out. So, anytime both of your tackles are out, you're going to struggle with protecting the quarterback. Regardless. Do have a decent defense, though, of course. But I do have the Bears coming out and surprising everyone, getting a win over the Packers. Kind of the same thing I said with the Cardinals and with the Broncos, that I've seen teams go 0-2 in the first 2 weeks of the season, then go on to do great things in the postseason. So I don't think that it should be concerning for Packers fans that I'm saying this, but I do think this is one of the weaker Packers teams that we've seen in a very long time. With that comes to it. That's a Sunday night game, so that comes to an end of our Sunday slate of games, and now we move on to the doubleheader that we have looking forward to on Monday night. The first game is going to be Titans at Bills. The Titans are very much missing A.J. Brown. They can't get anything going with their 2 rookie. Look, they have 2 rookie receivers that got more yards, more pass attempts than Robert Woods did. That's concerning because statistically, rookie receivers get more targets as the season goes on. And that means Robert Woods is going to be missing out on targets. And they're still struggling. And they need to also get King Henry going. Like, those are the 2 things. They need to figure out their offense as a whole. Their defense is, meh, but they just need to figure out their offense as a whole, really. Titans are an offensive team, and they need to play like that. Do I even have to talk about the Bills at all? This is literally what I wrote down in my show notes. Come on, do I need to say this again? Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, their running backs in Moss, Singletary, and Cook. And then, of course, you have on the defense, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Gregory Rousseau, Von Miller. The list goes on and on and on. 6 different D linemen checking into games, resting their other players. The Bills are going to win this game, and I think everybody knows it. They're going to go to 2-0. Titans are going to need to figure some stuff out, and that's just the way that it's going to have to be. Second game of the night is going to be Vikings at Eagles. I think this one's going to be a little bit closer of a matchup and a more entertaining matchup overall to watch. Vikings, of course, the big question really is, are we going to see primetime Kirk Cousins? Are we going to see the Kirk Cousins that struggles, or we're going to see the Kirk Cousins that we saw last week that looked refreshed, that looked renewed, that looked like an organization that trusted him? And he gave the game ball to his new head coach and GM saying, thank you for trusting me. This is a new Kirk. He's been paid. He has an organization. That's kind of behind him. I mean, the GM did say some things about him in the offseason, but he's using that as a motivation, and this is a motivated Kirk Cousins. They have Justin Jefferson, they have Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. Look, and they have a defense that surprised me last week. Eagles, I mean, you have Hurts throwing to A.J. Brown. One of the things, though, is can Devontae Smith get going? I mean, Heisman champion, very fantastic rookie receiver last season. He needs to figure out how to get going because the tag team of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith is going to be deadly if Devontae Smith can get back to his full form. Boston Scott looked fantastic out of the backfield. Their defense has the talent. Look good on paper, but they need to get going. They have great talent, but they need that chemistry that I think is simply lacking because a lot of the players came in like later in the training camp and so on. So I think they just need to work on that, get some more practice underneath their belts, and they'll be just fine. I do have the Eagles winning this one. This was another tough one to predict. I kind of just eeny, meeny, miny, mode, flip a coin, whatever you want to say, but I do predict Eagles winning that one. And with that is going to wrap up today's show. Thank you very much for you all listening. Don't forget, like I said at the beginning, to follow on all the socials. Find the show wherever you watch your podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And I will see you all on Thursday where we will discuss... this was Thursday. I'm a little flabbergasted. I will see you all on next Tuesday where we react to this week of NFL football, maybe touch on some storylines from college football and any other sport news that might be important. With that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy today's episode and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And I will see you all in the next one. Peace.